In the winter of 2013, the Limpopo province in South Africa was hit by unprecedented rains. Vhembe National Park, home to a multitude of wildlife, became a maze of muddy rivers and flooded plains. Dry savanna trails became impassable torrents, and once dusty roads were covered with a layer of viscous mud. Park rangers have been given an urgent mission to patrol the flooded areas, assess the damage, and rescue stranded animals. At dawn, under a heavy gray sky, the ranger team gathered at base camp. The air was saturated with dampness and the smell of wet earth. The wind carried the faint scent of rotting grass. Thaldi, the experienced team leader, checked her radio and signaled for departure. Their amphibious vehicles, reliable and ready for extreme conditions, hummed quietly, wide tires slowly sinking into the murky water. The team included Sibusiso, a skilled medic, Naleda, an expert on animal behavior, and Jacob, a young but determined ranger. Everyone understood. After such a flood, many animals could be trapped, injured, or even on the verge of death. The cars moved slowly, ripping through water that reached the axles of their wheels. Tandy, gripping the steering wheel tightly, scrutinized the horizon, her radio crackling with reports to the park's control center. The savannah, usually filled with birdsong and hoof stomping, was now silent. Only the sound of running water and the occasional creaks of trees bent by the wind broke the silence. Branches of bushes and trees hung down, soaked with moisture, and in places the ground was eroded, exposing roots and creating dangerous holes. Rangers stopped frequently to clear obstacles out of the way. Fallen branches, tangled reeds, clods of mud. Plunging knee-deep into the water, they worked silently but coherently, realizing that every minute counted. The deeper they moved into the park, the more they realized the extent of the devastation. Flooded meadows, washed-out trails, and signs of animals fleeing in panic painted a grim picture. In a low-lying area, where the river had overflowed its banks, the team noticed a disturbing scene. A lioness stood on a small hill surrounded by muddy water. Her golden coat was covered in mud, her mane wet and slick. She lowered her head low, letting out a hoarse growl of pain and despair. Around her, the water slowly receded, leaving behind mud and fallen grass stalks. The rangers stopped the car, turned off the engine, and held their breath so as not to scare her away. As they cautiously approached, wading through the water, their eyes fell on a small lion cub lying motionless at the lioness's feet. Its tiny body, covered in wet fur, seemed lifeless. The rangers' hearts clenched in pain. Thandi, with her years of experience, immediately assumed that the lion cub might have drowned, swamped in the stream. But hope still lingered. Time was critical. Sibusiso and Naledi, wearing gloves, moved slowly toward the lion cub, raising their hands to signify that they were not a threat. Jacob stayed by the car, preparing medical equipment, an oxygen tank, a portable respirator, and warm blankets. The lioness, noticing the movement, let out a low growl, but her eyes full of alarm seemed to beg for help. She took a step back, but didn't leave, watching the people's every move carefully. Sibusiso knelt down beside the lion cub, placing his hand gently on its chest. The pulse was barely perceptible, faint as the fluttering of a butterfly's wings. "He's still alive, but time is short," he shouted. Smidoldi immediately hooked up oxygen, gently inserting a tube to force the water out of his lungs. Sibusiso began rhythmic heart massage, his movements precise but careful not to damage the fragile body. Thandi stood nearby, reassuring the lioness in a quiet voice. "We're here to help, Mama. Hang in there." The sound of the water, the rustling of the wind, and the crew's strained breathing blended into a disturbing symphony. The lioness, as if realizing their intentions, moved closer, her eyes never taking her eyes off the lion cub. The rangers knew they had seen many miracles, but also many tragedies when help came too late. They prayed this wasn't the case. After a few agonizing minutes, the lion cub suddenly twitched and coughed, releasing water from his lungs. His tiny chest began to rise. "Got it," Sibusiso exclaimed, his voice cutting through the grim silence. The team erupted into cheers of joy, and Thandi, unable to contain her emotions, shouted, "Well done, kid." The lioness let out a deep, shuddering growl that mingled relief and joy. Her eyes, which had recently been full of despair, now shone with hope. The lion cub opened its eyes weakly, its body shivering with cold and exhaustion. Naledi quickly retrieved a warm blanket warmed in the car and carefully wrapped him up, trying to keep him warm. Sibasiso continued to check his breathing, and Jacob brought another blanket to protect the baby from the cold wind gusts. The lioness, sensing that her cub was safe, came closer and licked his face gently. This warm gesture melted the tension, and the rangers smiled involuntarily. While the lion cub was recovering, the team examined him for injuries. Small scratches were found on his hind paws, probably from hitting rocks or branches during the flood. Naledi carefully treated the wounds with antiseptic and applied light bandages. The lioness watched carefully, but did not interfere, as if trusting the humans. Jacob, stroking the lion cub, said quietly, "You're doing well, fighter." The rain finally stopped, and the first rays of sunlight broke through the clouds, illuminating the water with golden glints. The birds that had been silent all night began to sing, filling the savannah with the timid sounds of life. The air became fresher, soaked with the smell of wet grass and earth. The moment seemed to be a turning point. Nature seemed to be celebrating a small victory with the ranger. Tandy offered to discuss what to do next. Jacob insisted on taking the lion cub to the center for observation, but Naledi objected. He needs to be with his mother. At this age, he's learning to survive, to hunt. Separation could be detrimental. Thandi agreed, adding, "If his condition is stable, it's best to leave them in the wild." The team checked the lion cub's pulse and breathing once more. He was weak, but his eyes shone with a stubborn spark of life, and the faint movement of his tail indicated that he was ready to fight. The lioness, as if understanding the decision, licked the lion cub, encouraging him. She gently nudged him with her nose, and the cub staggered and tried to stand up. The rangers held their breath as they watched him take his first tentative steps. The lioness supported him, setting her body up for him to lean on. This bond between mother and cub touched everyone to the core. Before letting them go, the rangers checked the lion cub one more time. Sibasiso wiped his fur thoroughly, removing dirt, and Naledi replaced the bandages, making sure the wounds were safe from infection. Jacob put another warm blanket under him to keep the baby warm in the morning chill. Every movement was filled with care to make the lion cub feel safe. When everything was ready, the lion cub, though weak, stood up and walked uncertainly to his mother. The lioness gently rubbed her muzzle against his head, making a low rumbling sound full of love. The rangers backed away, giving them space. The morning light colored their fur with warm tones, and the water droplets on it glistened like gems. The lioness looked at the team, her gaze full of gratitude, and then slowly led the lion cub into the thicket. The team stood in silence, watching the two figures disappear into the tall grass. The smell of mud and rain still lingered in the air, but the rangers' hearts were full of warmth. They knew that their mission was not just to save one lion cub, but to preserve the delicate balance of nature. As the rangers rode back to base camp, the golden light of the rising sun flooded the savannah, offering hope that the floodwaters had receded. The rescue of the lion cub was not just an act of heroism. It was a testament to the unwavering dedication of Thandi, Sibasiso, Naledi, and Jacob to protecting the delicate balance of life in Vembe National Park. The cub being safe with its mother was a small but powerful victory over the chaos of the flood. The rangers' hearts swelled with pride as they gave this young life a second chance to roam the wilds of Limpopo. That moment of triumph lingered in the air, mingling with the fresh smell of wet grass and the distant cries of awakening birds. The savannah, though damaged by flooding, pulsed with resilience, reflecting the determination of the rangers and the fierce love of the lioness for her cub. Their story was a reminder that even in the face of nature's fury, compassion and teamwork can offer hope. Friends, if this story of courage and survival has touched your heart, please support it. Click the like button to recognize the incredible work of the Rangers, and subscribe to our channel for more stories of wildlife and heroism from the heart of the savannah. Your support keeps these stories alive, Join us for the next adventure.